Part 1. Cereals of A Little Cookbook for a Little Girl. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Ashley Jane. A Little Cookbook for a Little Girl by Caroline French Benton. Part 1. Cereals. The Things Margaret Made for Breakfast. A Little Cookbook for a Little Girl. Cereals. 1 quart of boiling water. 4 tablespoons of cereal. 1 teaspoonful of salt. When you are to use a cereal made of oats or wheat, always begin to cook it the night before, even if it says on the package that it is not necessary. Put a quart of boiling water in the outside of the double boiler and another quart in the inside, and in this last mix the salt and the cereal. Put the boiler on the back of the kitchen range, where it will be hardly cooked at all, and let it stand all night. If the fire is to go out, put it on so that it will cook for 2 hours first. In the morning, if the water in the outside of the boiler is cold, fill it up hot and boil hard for an hour without stirring the cereal. Then turn it out in a hot dish and send it to the table with a pitcher of cream. The rather soft, smooth cereals, such as farina and cream of rice, are to be measured in just the same way, but they need not be cooked overnight. Only put on in a double boiler in the morning for an hour. Margaret's mother was very particular to have all cereals cooked a long time, because they are difficult to digest if they are only part cooked, even though they look and taste as though they were done. Cornmeal mush. 1 quart of boiling water. 1 teaspoon of salt. 4 tablespoons of cornmeal. Be sure the water is boiling very hard when you are ready. Then put in the salt and pour slowly from your hand the cornmeal, stirring all the time till there is not one lump. Boil this half an hour and serve with cream. Some like a handful of nice plump raisins stirred in too. It is better to use yellow cornmeal in winter and white in summer. Fried cornmeal mush. Make the cornmeal mush the day before you need it, and when it has cooked half an hour, put it in a bread tin and smooth it over. Stand away overnight to harden. In the morning turn it out and slice it in pieces half an inch thick. Put 2 tablespoons of lard or nice drippings in the frying pan and make it very hot. Dip each piece of mush into a pan of flour and shake off all except a coating of this. Put the pieces, a few at a time, into the hot fat and cook till they are brown. Have ready a heavy brown paper on a flat dish in the oven, and as you take out the mush, lay it on this, so that the paper will absorb the grease. When all are cooked, put the pieces on a hot platter, and have a pitcher of maple syrup ready to send to the table with them. Another way to cook cornmeal mush is to have a kettle of hot fat ready, and after flouring the pieces, drop them into the fat and cook like doughnuts. The pieces have to be rather smaller to cook this way than in the other. Boiled rice. 1 cup of rice. 2 cups of boiling water. 1 teaspoonful of salt. Pick the rice over, taking out all the bits of brown husk. Fill the outside of the double boiler with hot water, and put in the rice, salt, and water, and cook 40 minutes, but do not stir it. Then take off the cover from the boiler, and very gently, without stirring, turn over the rice with a fork. Put the dish in the oven without the cover, and let it stand and dry for 10 minutes. Then turn it from the boiler into a hot dish. Have cream to eat on it. If any rice is left over from breakfast, use it the next morning as fried rice. Press it into a pan, just as you did the mush, and let it stand overnight. The next morning slice it, dip it in flour, and fry, either in the pan or in the deep fat in the kettle, just as you did the mush. Farina croquettes. When farina has been left from breakfast, take it while still warm and beat into a pint of it the beaten yolks of 2 eggs. Let it then get cold, and at luncheon time make it into round balls. Dip each one first into the beaten yolk of an egg mixed with a tablespoon of cold water, and then into smooth, sifted breadcrumbs. Have ready a kettle of very hot fat, and drop in 3 at a time, or if you have a wire basket, put 3 in this, and sink into the fat until they are brown. Serve in a pyramid on a napkin, and pass scraped maple sugar with them. Margaret's mother used to have no cereal at breakfast sometimes, and have these croquettes as a last course instead, and everyone liked them very much. Rice croquettes. 1 cup of milk, yolk of 1 egg, 1/4 cup of rice, 1 large tablespoonful of powdered sugar, small 1/2 teaspoonful of salt, 1/2 cup of raisins and currants mixed, 1/2 teaspoonful of vanilla. Wash the rice and put in a double boiler with the milk, salt and sugar, and cook till very thick. Beat the yolks of the eggs and stir into the rice, and beat till smooth. Sprinkle the washed raisins and currants with flour, and roll them in it, and mix these in, and last the vanilla. Turn out on a platter, and let all get very cold. Then make into pyramids, dip in the yolk of an egg mixed with a tablespoonful of water, and then into sifted breadcrumbs, and fry in a deep kettle of boiling fat, using a wire basket. As you take these from the fat, put them on paper in the oven with the door open. When all are done, put them on a hot platter, and sift powdered sugar over them, and put a bit of red jelly on top of each. This is a nice dessert for luncheon. All white cereals may be made into croquettes. If they are for breakfast, do not sweeten them, but for luncheon use the rule just given, with or without raisins and currants. Hominy. Cook this just as you did the rice, drying it in the oven. Serve one morning plain as cereal with cream, and then next morning fried with maple syrup after the rest of the meal. Fried hominy is always nice to put around a dish of fried chicken or roast game, and it looks especially well if, instead of being sliced, it is cut out into fancy shapes with a cookie cutter. After Margaret had learned to cook all kinds of cereals, she went on to the next thing in her cookbook. End of section 1. Recording by Ashley Jane.